Hola, bon dia. Carl Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal live stream YouTube channel and podcast in association, of course, with expatsportugal.com. And we have a webinar tomorrow night that we are collaborating on, taking part in, which explains the D7 visa process. So if you're interested in that, don't forget to join us at 8 o'clock. I'll tell you a bit more about that a little bit later on in the show anyway. They're often good fun, those webinars. And of course, if you saw the starter screen there, you'll be aware too. I hope that wasn't too confusing that you arrive at Good Morning Portugal only to find Good Evening Portugal on the screen. But that was an ad for our Good Evening Portugal conversation show, which starts tomorrow evening at 10 o'clock. A place for relevant, respectful and legal conversation. Whatever it is that's on your mind about life in Portugal, you can talk about it, let off steam, and have a respectful conversation, not just with me, but with anyone in this format. Basically, we use this format and share your views, share what's on your mind, and we'll talk about it with others in what can seem like a terrifying place, the internet these days, where people get triggered and upset so easily. Here we are, providing a space where the conversation can be a little bit more easygoing, respectful. Thank you so much. Catering has come into the studio, and little Jimmy Choo, who made quite an impact yesterday morning, and his photograph is now on the Good Morning Portugal Facebook page if you want to see young Jimmy Choo, the puppy, and you can guess why his name is Jimmy Choo, I suspect. Good morning to Andy Barnett, who's in early already. Good morning, Andy. How are you? How did you get to be here this morning? I'm guessing you might have come from the expatsportugal.com community. Let us know where you are in relation to your Portuguese adventure. Are you wishing to come here? Are you here already? And you may not wish to answer that at all. You might just be having a quick look to see what goes on here. So sorry if I'm putting the spotlight on you unnecessarily. And you only popped in to have a look. And there I am grilling you on screen. But very good morning to you, Andy. Thank you. I put your comment on because you're the first to say hello today. So hola, bon dia to you. And como está? You may wish to converse with me in Portuguese as well. But then again, you may not. So there you go. Tomorrow night, 10 o'clock, we have our first edition of Good Evening Portugal. And actually, it's the Wine Tasting Club edition here. Let me just show you the wine in question, shining under the studio lights. Look at that. Not bacalhau flavored wine. You could be forgiven for thinking that, couldn't you? But it's Quinta de Bacalhau, I believe, or Bacalhau, and that is a Setúbal wine, I believe, as well. Let me have a look. In fact, I'm just kind of making it up. I don't know a lot about wine. I know I like drinking it, but our expert with this is Eloise Healy, who will tell you a whole lot more from 10 o'clock tomorrow evening. But what I can tell you about this is one of the most expensive bottles of wine I have ever tasted. It's 5 years old. Isn't that sweet to think that the grapes in here are over 5 years old in this bottle, and it's been preserved just for me to enjoy. Yeah, Setúbal, Vinho Regional Peninsular de Setúbal. It's a red Vinho Tinto 2015. We'll be savouring that tomorrow night on the first of the Good Evening Portugal outings. Really looking forward to that. Expat Sport Report returns on Friday at 10. And then Mondays, Tuesdays and Wednesdays are largely up to you and what you want to say. It'd be great to keep it relevant to Portuguese life, living in Portugal or thinking about living in Portugal, obviously keeping it respectful and definitely keeping it legal as well. And I know Gary Austin is looking forward to it. He sent me a video this morning of himself stripped down to the waist, not unlike his name escapes me. Why can I not remember the Russian premier's name? But you know who Putin. Why not Rasputin? Although Gary might have looked a little bit like Rasputin as well as Putin this morning. Stripped down to the waist he was, like Vladimir Putin. Boxing gloves on, saying he's looking forward to the new Good Evening Portugal format. Make of that what you will. But bon dia todo to you too, Gary, or bon dia to you. And thank you for saying a bon dia todo to everybody as well. Paul Williams is here. Hola, bon dia, from a cool south coast of England. Good morning to you, Paul. It is a muggy 25 degrees here in Portugal in the studio of Good Morning Portugal. And I'll have a look at the principal parts of the country in just a moment, weather-wise. Shelley is here as well in Cascais, loving the beach, of course. Which is your favorite, though, of the Cascais beaches, Shelley? There are quite a few around there, aren't there, to savor and enjoy? I went to the Apple Beach. That's not so far from there, is it? The Apple Beach. Took my mother to, when she was visiting, to a lovely restaurant just overlooking what I recall is the Apple Beach, Praia de Massa, or is that Beach of Pasta? Did I mispronounce that? I made it, says Boaz Kapsutu. Are you a man who likes to lie in? And is that why you are celebrating having made the show this morning, Boaz? Bon dia, with a nice purple heart for everybody there. And Andy, very kindly, I didn't mean to grill you and put you on the spot there, Andy, but you've been very forthcoming. Had a home in Portugal for 12 years, but currently in the UK, as August is too hot for me. I totally understand that. A maximum, thank you for that, Andy. Bon dia, early today, says Jeff Leyland. Good morning to you, Jeff. Owen, Villa de Rey. If you're new to the show, you will see that quite a few people put in a personal weather report where they are in their part of Portugal. And I'm sure they're very happy to speak about their part of Portugal as well. Owen here in Villa de Rey, maximum of 37 degrees today. Starting off, it looks like at 22. Bon dia, beautiful people. Thank you very much for that. For that much, you would think you'd get a new one. For that much, we think. Is that my? Is that my wine? Yes, excellent, Gary. Yeah, for that much money, you think you'd get this year's wine rather than a 5-year-old antique one. Very good, very good, very good. Hola, bon dia, Carl. More wood chopping on the cards. At least the winter nights and barbecue are covered. The pictures I've seen of your tour of Portugal seems to be you doing quite a lot of work, driving, chopping wood, whilst accompanied by two ladies who generally drink wine. Is that the picture there, Wayne? Bon dia, guys, from Druba, who's over Sintra way. Good morning to you, Druba. Always great to have your company, and always great to see your pictures of your wonderful garden in our Happy Homesteaders group as well. So for the sort of people who come to Portugal, not only to grow vegetables, but for part of their life is having a little bit of a homestead, we have a Happy Homesteaders group, which you can find on Facebook as well. And Druba has shared pictures of his garden there, as other people do. Now is a great time of year to share pictures of your harvest, or certainly the first produce coming from the garden for the year. Claire Bendel, who was with us the other day talking about her fantastic 50, so flies in the studio already as well. She was talking about fantastic 50s and her fitness program, intermittent fasting and so on. She harvested 45 heads of corn, and in my mind I can imagine just eating those slathered with salted butter, a real treat from the garden, right? Growing your own corn. Gary Austin, yeah, for that much wine, you think you'd get a new one. Absolutely. The old ones are the oldest, aren't they? That applies to jokes as well as wines. Can't wait to retire there in Porto. That's from another new name. Welcome to you, Andrew Rigney. Thank you very much with your rather fine and fetching profile picture there. Excellent. Veronica McCluskey, that's not true. We have gin as well. Wanting to defend her honor there, me casting aspersions in her general direction and just saying that all she does is drink wine all day while Wayne is chopping wood. Certainly not. They drink gin as well. Glad we've set the record straight there. So thank you, Veronica. The weather that I mentioned that you can see from your own window, of course, I know that, but I know that also that people outside of Portugal who want to be here have a kind of strange, sadomasochistic relationship with the weather here. It's like, oh, really nice to know what's going on there. Oh, I wish I was there enjoying it myself, if you get my drift. 21 degrees in the capital at the moment, rising to 31 today. Isn't that great? And the cloud has lifted. We've had a few cloudy days. It's still been very warm, absolutely warm here. I threw myself in the cool pool late in the evening, around 9:30. In a Wim Hof kind of way. And it was so nice to do that because although it's been cloudy, it has been very humid and muggy. So 31 degrees to look forward to in Lisbon. Porto, 26 degrees to look forward to, currently 18, no cloud there. Coimbra, 32 the high today. Wow, 18 degrees at the moment, no cloud. Clear throughout the day also in Faro, rising to 30 for you guys down there in Faro today, currently 25 degrees. Excellent. There's your weather. And we have good news to report, I have to say. But, excuse me, there I am about to talk about COVID-19 and having a coughing fit. It always happens. It always happens. And I know what you're thinking. Let's go back to a few of your comments before I do that. Good news on COVID-19 here in Portugal. I bought a place there 3 years ago with a thumbs up from Andrew there. You lucky man. Kez Cracknell, Ola, been here for 2 weeks. Absolutely love it. Yeah, the shine doesn't go off that in my experience, Kez. So here's to you. And a long and happy relationship with Portugal. Quick tip for organic fertilizer. Here we go. Everything is discussed here on the Good Morning Portugal live stream. A quick tip for organic fertilizer. Put used banana skins in a jar of water for a few days, then use liquid on potassium-loving plants. Where else are you going to get horticultural insight like that? You may never need that tip, but you know it. It could be useful in a pub quiz. Who knows? Oh yeah, one of our socials for expatsportugal.com, as well as doing webinars on the more serious stuff, the hard info about how to get to Portugal and so on, and how to find a home, about how to get the best broadband and all those sorts of things that we discuss on the Portugal Calling webinars. We'll be having a social soon as well. And I'm reminded of that because we may well have a kind of pub quiz going on, Portuguese pub quiz. I am really looking forward to that. I have done a few quizzes in my time, and I'm looking forward to do a Portuguese flavored one for you on the social. So if you go to Expats Portugal on Facebook, you'll be able to see the upcoming webinars, including that one, Portugal Calling the Social. So why not register yourself for that? And we'll have a bit of fun on that evening. Andrew says, can't come this year due to quarantine rules in the UK. Yeah, a two-week trip here turns into a month out of your entire schedule, doesn't it, at the moment? A total pain, unfortunately, and it is a pain we can feel. Andrew, now, if this is any consolation, let me share this with you. First day since March with no COVID deaths. Isn't that good news? And I'm just going to tidy up the back of the screen so you can see this properly without any other distractions. There you go. And I'll share this with you from the Portugal Resident, portugalresident.com. Our favorite writer there, Natasha Don. First day since March with no COVID deaths. Reason for great satisfaction, says Health Secretary. There have been no deaths from COVID-19 in the last 24-hour period. And this was reported on the 3rd of August. And this relates to the period between Sunday and Monday. So why do I always start coughing when I talk about COVID-19? The question you may well be asking yourself. A sip of my multivitamin drink there. Yeah, I know. It's all psychological, isn't it? These vitamin drinks, but I like the fizz more than anything else. This is the first day since March that Portugal hasn't registered a virus-related death. This is reported on the 3rd of August. Seriously, now the news which came at today's virus press briefing saw Health Secretary Antonio Lacerda Salles say it was a reason for great satisfaction, given that things have been very difficult lately. There's an understatement. We're happy this has happened, he told reporters. Numbers, however, continue to be analysed with great care without excessive euphoria when the situation seems more controlled, or exaggerated negativity when things don't go as we would like. And that's good statesman-like sharing there, isn't it? A response, I think. Striking that balance must be quite difficult, to be fair to the politicians. Lacerda Salles was also at pains to explain that the reduction in the number of infections, just 106 new cases, again, the majority in the Lisbon area, has nothing to do with a reduction in health authority testing. And they have to think of every possible question they're going to get asked or tripped up, or an attempted trip up question from reporters, obviously. So quick to point out there, nothing to do with the reduction in health authority testing. Despite a reported change in testing policy guidelines, the health secretary affirmed that Portugal is performing an average of more than 13,000 tests per day, and this is set to continue. Today, however, also marks the first full week in August. As such, we'll see many more families on holiday. To ensure the country enjoys more days with zero deaths from COVID-19, Lacerda Salles said, "We cannot forget the rules of respiratory etiquette," which I'm observing right now. It's only me and the puppy in the studio, thank heavens, and social distancing must prevail. This puppy hates to be socially distanced from me. He's such a big baby. If I may digress for a moment, he got trapped on the wrong side of a fence this morning when we were out. I'd like to go out and get a bit of cold morning air, feed the chickens, etc. Take the dogs for a little walk. His companion is called Peggy, a Portuguese stray who turned up in our garden one day. Take them out. He got on the wrong side of a fence this morning. It was crying like a little baby, bless him. And you'd never guess now, fast asleep behind me in the studio here. Anyway, back to the serious news here. Our collective success continues to depend on the individual actions of each one of us in the family, at work, on the beach, and in other public places. The numbers in hospitals have been holding steady at around the 400 mark. If you've just tuned in, this is an update, a positive update on the COVID situation in Portugal. Okay, Monday's total 390. The latest INE report on excess mortality in Portugal actually shows that deaths for the first week in July were down on numbers recorded during the same period in 2018-2019. Really interesting, this, isn't it? The annual death figures seem to be down, certainly in the UK as well, causing even more head scratching in this unusual, unprecedented, I can't not use the word unprecedented time for us. Deeper analysis of those sorts of things on our evening show, which begins from 10 p.m. Did I mention that? Which begins from 10 p.m. tomorrow evening. But we're kicking off with the Wine Club. It could get a bit more serious after the wine. It could get less serious after the wine, of course, tomorrow night at 10. And Sean Maguire is here as well, everybody. Good morning. For people looking for a small farm in central Portugal close to Cerça, get in touch with me. Cheeky little ad there. Very nice, Sean. See what you did there. But yes, I'm all for it. Also, I guess you must have listed that on Expats Portugal on the new property pages there, Sean. Do that for sure. Can you explain what the resident is? Is it an expat paper? Yes, it is. Absolutely. It is. There are two main papers in English, Andrew, the Portugal News and the Portugal Resident. I'm an independent broadcaster here with no axe to grind apart from my own, generally speaking. And my personal preference, actually, there's a third entrant into this situation now. And, there are other English language reports and sites, but the principal ones, and they've come out of the Algarve, obviously, because that's where the concentration of English speaking, English reading people are. But yeah, the Portugal Resident and the Portugal News are the two principal papers, and obviously they're focused. I think they may both still have print editions, but I mean, who reads print papers these days? They are well focused on the internet. Portugal Resident, my favorite of the two, I have to say, and within that esteemed publication, Natasha Don, my favorite reporter. The other one that occurred to me is the Spoof News, which is a bit of a Mickey take of the Portugal News, and well worth a listen there, or a read. It'd make a great podcast, actually, which we have. If you need our podcast, we're on Spotify. If you want to recommend this to anybody, or you want to hear it again, you can't watch, but you want to hear. Every one of these shows is a podcast as well, available from Spotify. Yeah, the Spoof News, Portugal News Spoof Edition, or something along those lines, is available. I'm sure if you put Portugal News Spoof, you'll find that on Facebook as well. And very funny it is too. An excellent satirical look at life in Portugal. So I hope that helps, Andrew. Very healthy for me to wear a mask. I smoke a lot less, and I don't have to kiss my wife that often. Ooh, Ferry. Everybody, this is Ferry Westphal over there in Castanheira de Pera. And he is a rascal, as you can tell from his comment there. I'm sure his wife is very lovely and the butt of such jokes. Thanks for that, says Andrew. Not at all. That is absolutely what we're here for, Andrew. Me, and if not me, these fine people who you have in your company this morning on the screen, all very happy and helpful. Generally speaking, we all get eggy from time to time, don't we? But generally speaking, the idea of this is, I don't know if you have looked at the news just recently, and we are in these unprecedented times. I would like to think, we could take the angle that we only do positive news, which I think is a bit weird. I used to work at a newspaper called Positive News. Well, and I was trying to think about this morning. Trying to think. There I am. I was thinking about this morning, and what is it I'm endeavouring to do in the morning here? And I think we're, essentially we are celebrating life in Portugal for expats and explorers, immigrants, people who come to Portugal who aren't Portuguese, and actually some people who are returning to Portugal who are in essence Portuguese but have been away with their family for a very long time. There's a lot of that happening, and some of them do listen to this show. But generally speaking, expats, explorers, immigrants coming to Portugal, being in Portugal, celebrating that lifestyle. And the really important thing, I mean, there are two P words around that, aren't there? One is potential, because, it's so much about the potential, especially if you bought a pile of rocks in central Portugal. It's all about the potential and your dreams. But it's also about perspective, this show. I want us to have a perspective that, yes, whilst it seems like the world is going crazy and that we are in these unprecedented times and we have been so put in a spin and undermined and knocked about by the pandemic, we also might have a sense of perspective, a bit of a giggle, a sense of community and connection here every weekday morning. I hope that's what we're doing. Let me know if you think that's what's happening. Let me know if you think I'm veering from that path, because sometimes I do perhaps get a little bit too negative and too many of the serious news stories. Help me keep that balance. Thanks, Andrew. Good man. Okay, excellent. People are having lovely conversations among each other. That's also what it's all about here on the Good Morning Portugal live stream. We've done the weather. We've looked at that wonderful positive COVID-19 story. And by way of an introduction to the place called Estoril here in Portugal, you were asking, Andrew, about the Portugal resident. Here's the other one. The Portugal News, and this is portugalnews.com, and it calls itself Portugal's national newspaper in English, okay? And I am sharing with you the article. He's a serious-looking gentleman, and he would be when you hear what's happened to him in the last few days, or his activities of the last few days. Spain's embattled ex-king Juan Carlos leaves for Portugal. That gave me a really good chance to go with Antonio Banderas flourished there, didn't it? Juan Carlos leaves for Portugal, reports. Spain's former King Juan Carlos, again, has decided to leave the country weeks after he was linked to an inquiry into alleged corruption. What is it with the modern royalty? In June, Spain's Supreme Court opened an investigation into the alleged involvement of Juan Carlos in a high-speed rail contract in Saudi Arabia. The plot thickens. It was not immediately clear where the former monarch would now reside, but Correia de Manhã has reported that he would be settling in Estoril, Portugal, where he spent many years as a child and young adult. And I want that music, like da, 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 plot twist. The life of the rich and famous, the playboys, the intrigue. He's ending up in Estoril in Portugal, and which gave me a cue to talk to you about Estoril, because we're really keen to do language, culture, history of Portugal here. And I should have said this before, actually, the best Portuguese blogger coming up too. We're looking at a couple of Portuguese words with her, chinchada and chulé, from Beyond Lisbon, the blog of Catia Lima, Beyond Lisbon. We will finish with that. But before we go there, we're going to look a little bit further into Estoril, where Juan Carlos allegedly has ended up. And look, another question from Andrew. I'm really struggling to learn a language. Do you have any tips for a complete novice? I'm sure people will leap on that in the comments. I like practice Portuguese as a kind of audio person. And I also urge you to stay listening, because I've got 2 bits of vocabulary for you, Andrew. Practice Portuguese is good for the podcasty types. We also have interviewed. You might want to look back at our back catalogue here when we talk to Filomena Pascoal. Oh dear, I forget now. Philomena, anyway, we speak to her from time to time, and she does a live lingo lesson here on the live stream, which is great fun. She also does one-to-one lessons, and that's why I mention her. But you will get lots of help, and of course, ask that question on the Expats Portugal forum too. Why don't you? So here we go. We're going to go to Estoril now to give you an introduction to this incredible place with an incredible history. In Portugal. I'm just going to have another sip on my vitamin drink here. What are you drinking this morning? What are you having for breakfast? Thank you very much. Thank you for bearing with there. And the saveur is where this article comes from. It is old. It's written by Julia Cook. and I suspect he was American. The site is saveur.com. It's old, but it's so beautifully written. It was the best, excuse me, it was the best introduction, best written, just all round. I really liked what was being said here. And the cue, of course, was about the exiled king of Portugal, exiled former king of Spain, Juan Carlos, heading to this town in Portugal. The seaside Portuguese town that inspired James Bond, also Estoril, which was once the wartime home. Actually, get a drink, make yourselves comfortable. Which was once the wartime home of royalty seeking sanctuary, and still is by the sound of it, and spies who watched them enjoys an enchanting faded glamour today. And there is the remarkable Hotel Palacio. And there are hotels like this all over Portugal. See also the Correa Palace. See also the Busaco Palace, and also the hotels in the same chain in Lisbon and Porto as well, whose names I forget. But I don't order dry martini, says Julia, anywhere except in Estoril. I like her lifestyle already, I have to say. Usually I like my gin wet, but so does Veronica. But sitting in a low antique chair at the wood-paneled Spies bar in the Hotel Palacio, nothing but a dry gin martini will do. The echoing clatter of heels on marble drifts in from the hotel's double-height lobby, and there's never quite enough chatter to drown out the soft music. In daylight, the gleaming green and blue of the garden and pool blink through the long windows into the dim bar, lined with elegantly worn satin upholstery, and smoky mirrors catch the light at night. When it rains, as it does in winter, you can stare out at the dappled pool with underwater lights changing colors for no one. Waiters in white jackets carry platters of hors d'oeuvres, tiny tea sandwiches, and salmon rolls. Sipping from my stemmed glass, I am joined by a long and hallowed line of dry gin martini drinkers. Located 25 minutes outside Lisbon, Estoril became fashionable in the 1930s for its grand hotels and casinos. Then, during World War II, neutral Portugal, history lesson for you now, which played both sides off one another to ensure its own safety and profit, was flooded with foreigners staying for longer than just a summer vacation. Now, you've got the flavor of this place with Julia's excellent writing. We are now in the 1930s, I guess going into the 40s as well. While Lisbon was the center of official operations, seaside Estoril teamed with royal families from Spain, Italy, and Bulgaria, as well as French aristocrats, wealthy traders, displaced Jews, and the spies surveilling them all. What an atmosphere that would have been. Many took rooms at the Palacio, Allied territory, or the Hotel Atlantico, favored by the Germans. The Spanish royal family remained in town until the 70s. And that's why Juan Carlos has returned here, obviously. I'm onward now to find out about the James Bond connection. My very first time at the Palacio, walking to the breakfast buffet at the end of the hallway, took me nearly 20 minutes because I kept stopping to look at the photos of European royalty and guests from the 30s to the present that lined the walls. Stiff skirts at debutante balls, tiaras and white dresses at weddings, Grace Kelly and members of the Spanish royal family, the Infanta Pilar, among other Bourbons, which I always imagined was a biscuit. Which is also a biscuit, I should say. Later that evening, I chose my outfit with slightly more care. The next day, as I left for the beach, I swiped on some lipstick. And at that point, I should point out, this is the article. That's not me wearing lipstick going to the Hotel Palacio. It is indeed Julia Cook from her article, saveur.com. And there is a picture of triple agent and playboy Duško Popov, who we're going to find out about now. That is a real person. The Palacio, with its dark bar and bright lobby, copious marble, lived-in period furniture, and bellhops in tails, has the inherent theatricality of an old movie. Ian Fleming stayed here in the May of 1941 when he met Serbian-born triple agent Duško Popov, the Urbond playboy spy known as Tricycle for the women occupying both his arms. Here, Fleming conceived of his famed character and perhaps his hero's idiosyncratic shaken not stirred directive. In those years, you see, Portugal is behind the Bond legend. In those years, the high floors of Estoril hotels, the Palacio Atlantico and the Inglaterra were booked solid by agents who gazed toward the ocean after nightfall to decipher code twinkling from offshore ships. Wow! When the Germans ordered the best champagne at Spies Bar, the gin-swilling allies knew a battle had been lost in Africa. bartenders got the news before the papers printed it. Isn't this fantastic? So there's more to read there, but that just gives you an introduction to Ian Fleming's inspiration there for his Bond character, based on the real person who you can see on your screen. Sorry, podcast listeners, but it's a black and white shot on an Estoril beach of Triple Agent and Playboy Dushko Popov, seen here relaxing on the beach. He certainly is, with only one lady, not living up to his tricycle moniker there. He was a military intelligence and counterintelligence officer in Estoril during World War II, but not averse to taking a bit of time out on the beach, it would seem, from his busy schedule. So I hope you enjoyed that little bit of Portuguese history and culture. We're getting a lot of lovely comments here this morning. Thank you, and it's really lovely to welcome you all, who I know are coming from Expats Portugal, because we are now streaming to their Facebook page as well. If you're there, enjoying the show there, or wondering what the earth is going on, good morning to you from me and all the Good Morning Portugal community. Right, coffee, eggs, tomatoes, mushrooms. What's all this about? Cooked on the rocket stove, al fresco. So Beirut, Will. Your guess is as good as mine on Beirut. I'm not going to go into that right now, because I think that's an evening thing. That's a good evening Portugal thing, and I'm pretty sure I won't be able to avoid discussing that with people tomorrow evening on the Good Evening Portugal live stream tomorrow night. So let's park that up for the moment. I mean, it's truly horrific, isn't it, when you see the film footage of what happened there, and still a mystery and lots of suspicion, obviously. But let's talk about that tomorrow evening. Ferry, that's what I often wonder. Carlos leaves his country because of some corruption, but ever thought of who your expat neighbor is? Starting scurrilous rumors, Ferry. Thought you were Andrew. What's your name? You're a good man. Oh, Sean. I am Carl Munson, Sean. Pleased to meet you. Muito prazer, as we say in Portugal. And thank you for saying so. I appreciate that. Not everyone thinks that. I'll take that where I can find it. But Sean, you're most welcome. Tell us more about your place. Let's talk about it. And very good to make your acquaintance. To learn Portuguese, check out Portuguese Lab, Portuguese with Carla. And if you want online private lessons, I ideally recommend Liddy on the Verbling platform. That sounds like the sort of code that old Popov might have had to interpret, but we get the gist there, Boaz, as reaching out there to our new friend Andrew. Thank you for that, Boaz. So that's what you meant when you mentioned potential, royal potential. Yeah, isn't it bizarre? Dave and Debbie Inel, I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Inel, great show today, Carl. Thank you, Dave and Debbie. Really appreciate your support. And yeah, I just love that story. And it gets better now as we turn our attention to the lovely work of Catia Lima to conclude today's show. In case you're wondering, why are we seeing so much of Munson all the time just recently? It will change. Often there'll be a week where I have a guest every single day talking about what they do. These last couple of weeks I've been moving. It's been a little bit different. We are now in our lovely community collaboration with expatsportugal.com. Things have been a little bit different, but we will return to guests. And as I said yesterday, two requests of you. If you have a guest to suggest, tell them yourself about the Good Morning Portugal live stream, and I'll introduce me, and we'll get them on the screen and we'll talk to them. Or just tell me and I'll track them down like Popov and make my request of them to be on the screen with me. Very easy. It's just like doing a Zoom call, basically. My other request of you, send me your picture of your Hola Bon Dia picture in Portugal, your morning shot, the view from your window, if you like, within reason. And we'll have that as our starter screen. Really love receiving photographs of people's morning view, because it's like, to me, it's an iconic moment on your journey, your adventure in Portugal, isn't it? It's like that morning you wake up, and maybe for the first time you draw the curtains or lift the blind, more like in Portugal, and you look out and you go, oh, wow, that is what I came here for. That's fantastic. Or after you've been here for a while, you have that same recollection. You forget, don't you? We get into routines, or we get used to things and we forget. But then occasionally you see the view from the window that you fell in love with, or whatever, or that you dreamed about. And again, it's like, oh, yes, been here a few months or a few years, but that is what it's all about. So do send me those pictures, the picture that swells your heart in the morning. as you look from your place of residence. Here we go then. Just to conclude the show today, do please acquaint yourself with the wonderful Catia Lima. Always very happy to share her work here, because it's always well written and funny, and gives us expats and explorers a different kind of insight. It's not your regular language lesson. It's really laced with culture, humor, and all sorts. But she is Catia Lima, and her blog is Beyond Lisbon. Again, showing us that there is life beyond Lisbon. Nothing wrong with Lisbon. Lisbon is awesome, absolutely awesome. But there is so much more to Portugal than Lisbon. And say it in Portuguese, she says here, her blog from the beginning of the week, say it in Portuguese, chinchada and chulé. And I want you to practice these today. Slip them into a conversation somewhere, if you will. Extra points for doing that. Both words on this week's post, she says, are deeply connected to summer. Very topical too, you see, although neither of them is exclusive to the warmer months of the year. Very good. Today, it's all about grey areas of morality and getting dirty and smelly. Sorry if you're eating your breakfast. What a great way to start the week, she says, published 2 days ago. As mentioned before, please remember that these words are used only in informal situations because, beware, however, because some may have different meanings in different parts of the country, and particularly in cities. Some words may have an added meaning stemming from their use in Brazilian Portuguese. That is a worthwhile caveat with anything that you're doing with the Portuguese language. It may change throughout the country. People may not understand a word you're saying because of your accent and theirs, or they're listening for you, and of course the Brazilian influence as well. First word then, chinchada, a feminine noun, chinchada. The fine art of and so first person in the comments to come up with your local equivalent of this, extra points. The fine art of subtracting fruit and or vegetables from someone else's garden or field, which we certainly cannot condone here on the Good Morning Portugal live. I'm not saying we don't do it, I'm just saying we can't condone it. Let's say you live in an apartment and have a terrace. The violins are striking up. Now imagine one of your neighbors from the building next to yours also has a terrace, and he just so happens to have a big fig tree, so big that you can effortlessly pick a couple of sweet, delicious figs, yum, every day, or wasp coffins, as I heard them referred to recently. I'd not heard that before, figs, wasp coffins. This may or may not have happened to me, but it's a good example of what chinchada can be. Summer, with its abundance of produce, is the best time of year for this century-old activity. Yeah, it's as old as mankind, this. And mind you, I have a vast experience of practicing chinchada, which began when I was a kid, she says, and went on road trips with my family. Stopping every now and then next to a field with big juicy grapes, for example, was a mandatory experience. Dobbing the whole family in here. When you practice the fine art of chinchada, you're supposed to take just a bit to satisfy your craving, like an apple or two. Yeah, don't take your bags for life and fill them up. The thing is, although technically you are stealing, in practical terms, from my experience at least, here she is bending the law and moral standards. Most people will gladly offer you some fruit and vegetables if you know how to ask. Yes, ir à chinchada means literally going to the chinchada, and still today it's also something associated with childhood years. Don't be surprised if you hear an elderly Portuguese person saying to a friend or family member, "Lembraste de sermos miúdos e irmos à chinchada." I've made a real mess of that, I'm sure. Good job, Ana Lucia's not here. The pronunciation police, maybe she is. I haven't looked for a moment. Remember when we were kids and went chinchada? Translating this sounds terrible. But yeah, it's a childhood memory, and you'll have a word for it from your own culture, obviously. So there you go, chinchada. Slide that into a conversation, please, today. If you're a grower, you might accuse your neighbours of doing that. Chulé, which does sound like a place in the Algarve. Masculine noun, summer equals sweat equals smelly feet. I did apologize already if you're eating your breakfast, equals chulé. Obviously used in informal context, chulé is not the nicest word to hear if it is applied to you. In the context of Portuguese families, or in any situation where there are babies around, it's not unlikely, however, to hear this word. Seeing an elderly and otherwise probably severe-looking woman putting her baby's foot to her nose, we've all met her in Portugal, putting a baby's foot to her nose and saying, "Deixa ver se cheira a chulé." Let me see if it smells like chulé, followed by a blah, is a show only topped off by the baby laughter that usually comes next. And I think we've all done that as well, haven't we? We have our own sort of cultural equivalents all over the world. Like chavalo, chulé is a word of Calo origin. I don't know what that means, I'm ashamed to say, but I will find out, and that will make I think, an interesting journey another time. I'm not sure what the word chevallo is, and I don't know what color is. I'm sure it's either a dialect or a culture that we will refer to at some other point. So thank you so much, Catia Lima, for that in your wonderful Beyond Lisbon blog. I hope you enjoyed that, everybody. We'll go to one or two comments before we conclude today. Thanks, Boaz. I see. That's for his comments. Perfect. Great show. Love it, says Sean Maguire. You're absolutely welcome, Sean. Certainly with compliments like that. And a guest recommendation coming in. Good guest would be Richie Bassett from Eastern Algarve magazine. Can you put me in touch? He sounds like a character, Richie Bassett, probably from a Guy Ritchie movie. Great suggestion. Always delighted to talk to people. Everybody has a great story, in my view, and it's all the better when they live in or love Portugal. So thank you for that tip, Dave and Debbie. If you can introduce me, great. But he's obviously a man who I need to track down in a kind of pop-off way. Maybe not with quite the same sort of outcome as our friend Popoff carried out during the Second World War. Any road, let's leave it there for today. Actually, no. I was going to give you a bit more detail, wasn't I, on the event, the Portugal calling for tomorrow evening, which precedes our wine club and our new Good Evening Portugal format. But a free online event tomorrow, 6th of August, 8 till 9. Understanding, here's the official title of it, Understanding the D7 Residence Visa for Foreigners, in brackets retirement. Collaboration of us with Expats Portugal, named Portugal Calling, these webinars, in association with Imigrante. And I will give you a bit more detail here. Yeah, Expats Portugal is pleased to have Gilda Pereira from Imigrante as our special guest in this Portugal Calling online Zoom event. If you're interested in considering retiring in Portugal and have questions about the visa process, Gilda is your expert, and we'll have her at our disposal to ask questions of. This webinar would be of interest for those living outside of the EU and or plan to move to Portugal post-Brexit, as I suspect UK people will be going through the same process as everybody else. Unless, of course, based on the old Treaty of Windsor, we come up with some other sort of arrangement. But it's worth knowing about the D7 if you're coming from outside of the EU. This is an open forum for our community to ask questions and get answers. You do need to book for that. So go to expatsportugal.com and look up that in the events section. Thank you very much, everybody. A few more comments before we go. To start integrating these new words, I have to start scrumping the neighbour's tree and smelling baby feet. The extra points go to you. Well, of course, it is the Portuguese version of scrumping, isn't it? And yes, you do, Will. That is exactly what you have to do today. Go meet your neighbours and more people in your community by scrumping their fruit and veg and smelling their baby's feet. It's pronounced Wynell. That's great to know. Thank you very much, Dave and Debbie. Wynell. And Andrew, finally, wonderful to have you as a source of info via Expats Portugal. Thanks so much. Absolute pleasure, Andrew. And I hope you would agree. We have a bit of fun every weekday morning from 9 o'clock. And from tomorrow, I don't know if we can call it fun, what with Gary Austin stripping down to the waist and putting on his boxing gloves, but robust and respectful conversation in the evenings as well. Picture the scene. You know, you've had a couple of glasses of wine. You might have had a Sagres or a Superboc, and you are thinking about the world, reflecting upon the world, and may have a thing or two to say about it. Good Evening Portugal is the place to share your opinions from 10 o'clock in the evening. So twice a day now from me, 9 in the morning for this more upbeat, lighthearted and perspective-bringing event, I hope. And then in the evening, a slightly different atmosphere as we discussed respectfully and robustly the issues of the world. And, of course, the occasional webinar like we've got tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Até amanhã. Te logo. Te já. Ciao, ciao. And every other Portuguese sign-off I can think of. Only 4 today, I'm afraid. But have a great day and see you again tomorrow from 9 a.m. Have a great day.